Welcome to the DEI Effect. I'm Travis Brown, and here we are today breaking down stories of Black and brown executives and professionals that are navigating this thing called DEI. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Jumping in hot, right?
Yep.
So what is DEI to you? Because as a DEI influencer, you got your hands all in this. Like,
Yep.
I want to understand from your perspective.
Yeah, so DEI really is about helping humans be better humans when it comes down to it. And the reality is human as a construct, you know, it's this theoretical thing, but then when you actually have to live it out, you're recognizing your limitations and how do you embrace those limitations and how do you deal with difference. And so understanding difference, not being afraid of difference, and being able to understand the world and your responsibility in it. So both diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, justice, accessibility, these are all things that become part of that discussion.
When you think about where we are in this journey right now, is there one of the D, the E, the I, the B, is there one of them that we're doing better than others right now, or that we finally grasp one, but we're still lacking in others?
Yeah, so I think equity is the one that folks are challenged with, but the diversity piece, people kind of understand that. Even if they sometimes veer from racial diversity, they're thinking about, you know, all the different kinds of diversity. Inclusion is the mechanics of it, getting your policies right, and the belonging is really how you feel. And so I think people understand that they got to be diverse. Even the most anti-DEI people, I think, appreciate that diversity is something that, you know, that's not going away. But the equity piece is going to be the challenge.
And you know, and the equity piece, people are like, they get resistant to it. It's like, I got to do different things for different people, support different people or different resources, or create opportunities. Like, help us understand like why you shouldn't be threatened by equity and why there's a process to it, and ultimately makes us better.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with equity versus equality is everybody gets treated the same, but when everyone's treated the exact same, you neglect the culturally salient aspects and even the history of certain situations and people. History in the city, for example. And so when you're trying to get to equity, what you're doing is having a fuller recognition of where people have come from, the challenges that they've overcome, and trying to get to a place where we're all in this together. If we don't do that, we've learned, and we saw through, you know, the racial reckoning that we just went through, that fundamentally doesn't work. That society will unravel, and it has consequences. And so, equity, if we don't figure it out, we'll be in this perpetual cycle of, you know, silence and then explosions. And I think we have to figure out how to just be better humans with each other, be better people with each other. Because it's not about taking from someone, it's about getting folks to the right place.
So key that we're not trying to take from, it's really very different than that, but that becomes some of the narrative that you start to hear. It's like why we launched our campaign was diverse and talented, because we don't want people to think that like you have to choose.
Yeah,
like we're both. We're diverse and we are talented, you know, and it's not an or.
So that's actually one of the things that I feel is a competitive advantage for a company like mine. I can see the diversity and I can see the talent and I can see how the talent, like, they're connected. I was just in a conversation yesterday where they often it's you're either diverse or you're talented. Go ahead, give me all those folks that you think are diverse, and I will help you understand the talent. I never forget there was a CEO or a top executive at BET, and he talked about how he approached talent. He would hire teachers for executive positions because he understood that they knew how to multitask. He understood how to pull the talent out,
right,
and understand what talent was.
Because so often talent is like, it's a resume. talent is your education.
Yeah.
Talent is can I think and can I do at a level that maybe you haven't seen it yet. Maybe you haven't spent the time, but there's this false sense of like the talent's not out there.
Yeah.
And they do that in our industry too. It's like we're in a marketing industry and there's no other companies really like ours with this kind of diversity. And I keep hearing this like, wow, like we're interested now because we didn't even know like you exist or somebody like you exist. And on one side it's like, hey, that's great. I'm glad we're positioned that way. But it's like there is talent out there.
Yeah. And I think the thing with management, a friend of mine gave me a book where they said, I was like from good to great. And the principle was go out and find the most talented people and put them on the bus. I think that's a bad manager. I think a good manager is someone who can take anyone and figure out how to get them on the bus in a way that makes the bus move. In a good way, in a positive way. And so I'm enjoying the opportunity of just kind of watching, and as my organization is growing, I am seeing talent everywhere. And so
if you look, you'll see the talent everywhere. Let me ask you this: as a black male who's an entrepreneur, educated, and you have some of those the check marks that people look for from a talent perspective. But you're in this politic world, right? And there's not a lot of you.
Right.
What is that like trying to navigate that?
I see it as an advantage in some senses because I can, again, go back to my community and really tell the community what's happening, get their perspective, and insert that into a space that isn't used to seeing people like me and my business partner. And so I see that as an advantage, but it also means that you're navigating spaces that maybe you may not have as many mentors or maybe as many people to help you figure it out.
Right.
And so there is that, I'm aware of that, and there's some concern about that. But the thing is exist for now, so that the folks that come behind you have somebody they can follow.
Being in that only box, and I say only because there's very few, and often you're probably only in that room. Do you ever have a burden of like, people talk to you as if you are the and only voice for the black community? So
they try to. And one of the things that's important is not allowing yourself to think that you speak for the black community. Because when you do that, you do violence to the broad kaleidoscopic brilliance that is the black community and all of its different perspectives. It's not even possible. There's not a consensus on just about anything. So that's why like a black agenda matters, because you got a consensus on that, but that's on a piece of paper written out and it's a box. You got to stay inside that box. You step outside that box, you're not on agenda. So yeah, you have to be very careful about that. It doesn't mean that you're not connected, not informed. In rooms, I like to lift up voices and I think about, okay, what would this person say? How would this person be thinking about this? And I make sure that that's injected into the conversation, but I can't speak for the black community.
At present time, I think there's maybe 6 black or brown CEOs on Fortune 500. And the statistics probably look like that across the country. It's probably not much different. Is there going to come a time, part one, is there going to come a time when we can stop talking about DEI because it's actually in our DNA and that's just how we operate? Is that even possible? So
I can tell you right now, the DEI industry is about a $7.5 billion industry. Is expected to be about $15.4 billion, or roughly double by 2026. DEI is a journey. I think it'll always be an opportunity for us to improve. I hear you on, I don't like, right now, I appreciate the first, but it also is kind of embarrassing. Like, why are we still dealing with, it's the 21st century. We're almost a quarter way in, and we're still dealing with first, like, why don't we have a black mayor? Why did we just get a black chairman of the Democratic Party. Indianapolis has been here since 1821. How is that possible? We're here now. We still haven't gotten a black mayor, but I think that's coming.
So what's your big wish, big ask, big hope? If all this DEI stuff goes well, like what's on the other side of it as we wrap up?
So what I'm wanting people to do is to move from being an ally where they make statements and to be an accomplice, where they take action. And accomplice means you both understand your role and your responsibilities, and you are not removing yourself from the problem, but see yourself as integral in helping to move us all forward. And so I want to see folks take action.
Well, I love that, and I appreciate the position that you're in and the work that you're doing on policy, because a lot of us are doing a lot of different works in a lot of different places in our industry, but policy is something that allows it to be cemented into the future and who we are and what our kids have access to, and so I thank you for that. I appreciate getting to know you, and thanks a lot for coming to the DEI Effect.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. It's a wrap.